on the possible outcomes here. Next thing to think about is how would I want to make it? So there's a couple different styles of putting. There's this straddle stance where your hips are pretty much squared to the basket, you're dropping down and putting up. And then there's a staggered stance, which most people gravitate towards, in which you're kind of like dropping your non-dominant foot back, rocking onto it, and then pushing forward towards the basket. Both of them work just fine. It's more a matter of personal comfort. Same thing with spin putting versus push putting. Push putting is it's generally like this arcing putt. It doesn't have as much rotation on it, and you're kind of going like high to low and trying to drop it into the basket. It looks a little bit like this. And then a spin putt, obviously, is going to have more spin on it. Generally a lower trajectory, and I like to think of it as you're letting the disc be a disc. When you're doing a push putt, it's more like the disc is a projectile. It's a beanbag. It's a cornhole. If you're doing a spin putt, it's more like you're bringing the disc back as far as you can bring it, and then like striking forward at the basket. Looks like this. Again, both of those are just fine. What I would suggest as you practice, if you haven't developed a putt yet, figure out which one of those feels most natural, and then make that what you do most of the time. But eventually you're going to be in a situation where there's wind or you're stuck in the bushes. You can't go to your default. You have to find a way to make it in. So you have to practice a couple different things. There's also like hyzer angle, where the disc is kind of crashing in as it gets to the basket, or you can putt flat, or you can putt anhyzer. Anhyzer is good for more distance. Like the further back I go, the more I have to get it towards flat or anhyzer. But it means the disc is gliding. If you miss too high, or if you are chain high, you're liable to go well past the basket.
Can you explain that again? Sorry.
Yeah, definitely. Okay,
that.
so
I've never heard that before.
yeah. I'm gonna go back here a little bit, and if I putt on a little bit of hyzer and I get it just to the basket, chain high, how far past is it gonna go? 10, 12 feet maybe? Like, you can't go that far.
Yeah.
If I get a disc chain high on anhyzer, nuts. What is it? Like a disc that's on anhyzer is still gliding. It's like when people do distance competitions, they put the disc way up here and it's gliding.
Never thought about that.
Like, as soon as it gets back to hyzer, it's kind of out of speed and it dumps.
Okay.
The same thing is true with putting. Like, putting's just a small throw.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting.
So anyway, my thinking is that all of those are like little setups to the actual putt. Okay. I'll show you putting grip real quick. This is again going to be personal. Your hands are different than mine. Your bodies are different than mine. I want to have 3 fingers on the bottom of the disc, my thumb on top. I'm not gripping it too tight, but I'm gripping it in a way that like the disc isn't flopping around in there. My index finger on the rim, but not all the way to the outside, not all the way curled around the bottom. It's just in a place that's comfortable for me, kind of out of the way. Like, I think the thumb and the middle finger are the real contact points that are important, but the disc is tucked way back into my palm. Like, have a lot of contact with the disc. Again, that's personal. It's whatever works for you. So the first thing that I said I was going to talk about, and I now will, is staying loose. It's hard to do much of anything when you're really tense. Like, you can't go to sleep when you've had a really hard day at work without unwinding a little bit. You can't, like, you wouldn't want to go to go shoot a free throw just like, oh my god, I'm so tense. Putting's the same deal. Like, you want to have everything loose, from your wrist to your elbow, your shoulder. Everything working together is loose. So you'll see me stretching during rounds, or like right before I putt doing this. That is trying to like persuade my body and remind my body to be loose. The second thing is keeping everything online. So every basket catches really well, even if you're putting on that little one. Catches really well on the If I miss high and low, I feel like that's a solvable problem for the next putt. If I miss left and right, it probably means something's really wrong. Like, I see a lot of nodding heads here.
That's the same way I think about it.
So I think the way to solve that is you don't want to be pulling across your body. You don't want to be pulling from here to here, because like that trajectory doesn't go in line with the basket. And if you're like, I'll talk about using your entire body. If your hips open up, that kind of pushes you to the right. Or if you don't really move your hips at all, then your arm is doing all of the work, and like it's going to compensate by trying to work too hard to get the disc there, or it's going to put a weird angle and make you miss left. Keeping everything online is really critical, and it's kind of more evident with a straddle putt, where your hips are square to the basket the entire time. Like from the time I set up to the time I get to the max backswing to the time I release, my hips are always in line. I can keep the disc on the pole the entire time. With a staggered stance, it's kind of harder to show that. It's more felt that, yes, my swing is on the pole the entire time, but whatever orientation my hips are, like let's say I'm offset by 45 degrees here, if that's where I am at the front of my swing, and then my back swing, and then as I release, my hips need to stay in that same orientation. If they rotate, if they come back to square, it's a problem. It probably means I'm going to miss. Does that all make sense?
It does.
The third thing is using your entire body. So I've seen today already a couple folks who, like, their putting stroke looks good, but their weight is really far forward. And that makes it hard to deal with their nose angle, and it means that their arm is doing a lot of work. I like to explain for backhands and forehands, but it's also true for putting that your muscles between your knees and your core are really strong. They're good at lifting, they're good at like big, strong, coarse movements. Your arm muscles, much less so. Those are good for like, you know, chopping an onion or like doing like really small coordinated things. So if we try to let our lower body and our core do a lot of the work to get the disc there, it's using those for the things that they're good at. And if we let the disc, if we let our contact points with the disc and the rest of our arm do the like fine, spinny, controlled motion, it's also doing the optimal thing, right? So we're not going to solve this all today, but I think that between those three things, everybody can get better at putting. Does that all make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's few enough of us here that I think the best way to do this is probably to kind of do this as a group. So like one person step up and we'll watch a couple putts. You can ask a question or I'll give a little prompt and we can all watch. We can watch it again. Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
Who's going to be our first victim?
So far we've been doing ladies before gentlemen.
So
I'll go first, I don't care.
Yeah.
Great.
This is not because of Paige Pierce, I also want to just say, but I do start from up here,
Okay.
which I don't know if that's like detrimental to my...
Not necessarily. I mean,
Doing it since the get-go.
Calvin Heimberg does the same thing.
Yeah.
And like, what that could do is, it can establish a line that
That's
you're
what
pulling the disc back.
That's what I do.
So that's great for skating.
Are we going from this far? Okay.
You don't have to.
It's
If you
fine,
want to go
it's
from
fine.
here, that's fine.
It's fine. There's so much pressure, guys. This doesn't like feel like I'm putting normally.
Okay. Go to anywhere you feel comfortable. Like, you can learn from it.
Yeah.
Kind of like I described when thinking about using your entire body. It looks like you're very far forward, and that makes it. To me, that seems like you're having difficulty with your nose angle, as well as like your arm is doing all of the power work in addition to the control work.
Right.
So what I would suggest is play around with your back foot, figure out where you can place it, and then like you don't have to be straight in line with the basket like this. You can open it up. Like I'm almost 90 degrees when I'm putting the back. What that enables me to do is rock back onto my back foot. It's not that you want to be like squatting lower onto it. It's more that you want to be moving your hips back and forward so that your swing can be back.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you want to pick up, try again. You're welcome to.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Wherever.
When you're in a tight spot.
I'm not recording if it's Channing or not. So
Just for the sake of one.
I just want to get you on film here.
All right, so I'm like not going forward. I don't know. Am I still going forward?
I think those look better. Like,
Yeah.
first, you are more confident. Your body language is more confident at that distance than it was at
Yeah.
that distance.
Yeah.
So, like,
It's
if
hard to
that's-
tell, yeah.
If that's your comfortable putting range, it's fine. Like, I don't care if you live the rest of your life laying up from right
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
because you know that you're going to make that one.
Exactly. I like that concept. Yeah.
But like, when you stepped up to this, it was very apparent that you were looser. It was that you know you can make this.
Yeah.
And that enabled you to get a little further back and push towards the basket.
Yeah. I can definitely like integrate that into. That was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Nathan. Yeah.
So I think I would focus during your practice on staying in line. Yeah. It seems like you're like really loose and natural, and you have more of a like you have a natural hyzer release spin putt. It seems like.
I was doing it that way.
Okay. Well, if that's what it is today, then that's fine. My putt also evolves over time. You just have to figure out who I am. It seems like you get to here, and then you want to pull across your body.
Okay.
So I would suggest maybe slow down a little bit and try to stay on the pole. Like,
So keep it just kind of like in line.
absolutely. Like having your swing go from here on the pole to down and staying on the pole, because it looks like you get here and then you're kind of pulling offline rather than staying on the pole.
Throw it rather than.
Like a sea hook.
Yeah. And from this distance, even with a hyzer putt, it's not really going to fade. Like, you're going to get it in the basket. From further back, you might have to change your aim point so that you get a full flight and a dive set.
Okay.
Yeah. You want to try again?
Yeah.
Cool.
So you're saying just like go up and then release.
Yeah.
That.
There you go. Yeah.
Still is kind of hyzering a little bit, but.
Hyzer is fine.
Now I'm
Like,
like learned
it's-
about this anheuser situation.
I'm a hyzer putter.
It's totally like everything flies about the same inside the circle. So if you're a hyzer release, that's fine. I think what I'm suggesting is you just need to keep your swing on line with the pole.
Yeah.
So
Not
that
as much variable.
exactly.
So it's more just like, okay, I released it in the line. But also,
Those last three were definitely in line.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
it felt more controlled too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And like, we're never going to solve this today. It's more like, if I give you something to think about, like maybe in 2 weeks you'll be like, wow, I'm making a lot
Yeah,
more,
that
or
would be
I'm
sense, yeah.
online.
It's in line.
Yeah, cool. Great.
Don't you dare. You got that stuck in my head.
Sorry. It's just like
That's your hot sand. Nope. You should go a little closer. Nope. I can make cuts.
well, that's pretty far. Yeah.
All right. Well, because that's where I miss putts. Here.
So what do you think about this?
They all sucked. But they were going in this right direction.
Okay.
But they weren't high enough.
I think.
Yeah.
So you started from a place where you miss putts. I think it's totally okay to have this concept of like, this is where I make putts, and putt from there, and then gradually expand the range that you're going. I think it looks like
It's like all these variables.
you're kind of moving your hips, but it's not really a weight shift. So I would suggest moving your left foot back further and trying to move your hips a little bit laterally so that you can use your lower body. Yeah, like not that you're square to the basket entirely. It's more like you're pointing this foot at the basket. This one's a little further back, but that enables you to move your hips forward and back and use your muscles between your knees and your core. Ready for another set?
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah. I've always threatened it.
Sure.
Cassandra's girlfriend was
Yeah.
I'm working on this, not like my knees.
Yeah.
Trying.
Molly, do you want another putter? You can use my putters more.
No.
I'm just
I don't
offering.
play disc golf like you, Hannah.
No, I'm just offering my putters. I didn't know if you had enough.
I don't play with a putter usually. I play with a mid-range.
If you have a comment, that's all you need. You made the first one, and that looked really comfortable and confident. After that, it seemed like you were in your head.
Yeah, I was. I wonder what.
That's what I noticed her doing. She was doing this, and then when she went
Molly, I
to
love
finally
you.
putt, she took it totally offline
Huh.
I
from her
literally
practice.
thought I was
From this
helping
angle,
by
you could
offering
see
you a
that.
putter.
Okay.
I just assumed you
Interesting.
didn't have it.
Did you hear that note?
Yeah. No. Sorry. What'd you say?
So when you were rocking back and forth, you had everything online, like you were going great, and then right when you went to putt, you took everything offline.
Oh, and my arm was like.
Yeah,
that.
you brought everything up and did that instead of following through with whatever you were trying to do. You just went totally out of your normal line.
I really felt like none of
Can't
that was
believe
how
I
I
made that
putt too. It was
Okay.
really
Yeah, that's
weird,
how I
but
felt. I was like,
it
this is how
felt
I
bad.
putt.
Like everyone watching, it's like a little. Like,
I know, but that's okay. But I like the spin putt, but I don't need to be like when I let go. I need to.
Yeah. I think with a spin putt, because you're trying to put the disc like on a pretty flat line to the basket, it's like you bring it back into your belly button and then straight forward.
Okay.
Not. Whereas with a push putt, it's like this lofty trajectory, so you're kind of going down to up.
Yeah.
So if you want to be a spin putter, then I would try to figure out how to bring everything back and forward on that same plane.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the tip.
Truly don't.
Kind advice.
I'm sorry. No, I know. Yes, I know. Hands are going to
What felt different between those two for you?
The first one I was a little nervous, and then the second one I was like, all right, just don't be nervous.
Okay.
Your point about missing up and down, left and right is exactly how I think about putting.
Sure.
And it's like part of what changed my ability to stay loose a little bit was doing like 2 or 3 practice strokes and
Yeah.
just like feeling it and then getting to that third one. Being able to go straight out. I also think about kind of like shaking hands with the basket or just like that catch sort of mentality is a way to keep myself online.
Yeah, staying online is like my conception of it. There are people who are like cut through the basket or
I don't like
shaking
that
hands with
because
pull.
I'm also, to your point about optimization, I'm always like, I don't want to miss the spot. So I'm at whatever distance, I'm calculating like, okay, like how much of a, how hard am I going to put this? The closer I am, obviously, maybe you're a little more like direct. And
Yeah.
the further away I am, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to,
Float it up there a little bit.
float that over there.
Sure.
So, yeah, the distance changes the way I calculate my odds.
Yeah. I mean, the more comfortable you are with that comeback putt, the more you can expand that run activity.
Right.
It looks something that's like a little. This is a little bit in the weeds. It looks like when you miss, you're doing something different with your elbow. So it's kind of like when you make it, it seems like your elbow is doing a good job at accelerating the same way that your wrist is. When you're pulling them to the right, you're letting your wrist do too much, and that's ahead of your elbow. And that's pulling your swing across.
I think I know what you're saying because I do think when I tend to miss left and right, my arm starts to be a little bit separate from my body is doing. So I start my momentum here, and then my arm kind of like wants to finish out too much. And I do the same thing with the straddle. It's like it's harder because it is more arm, but yeah, you gotta let the arm just follow the body.
Yeah, so like in general, they look good. I think being able to tie it to the lower body and still keep everything online is now think about your hips and make your arm accelerate at the same rate as your hips. And if you do that, then your hips are giving the power. You can just let everything up here finish.
Follow through.
Yeah.
Like finish. The arm, it all just together. So that the arm is just an extension of that momentum you're creating with the legs.
Yeah.
And I think when I tend to miss is when my arm starts to have a mind of its own and it like wants to do extra things.
For sure. Cool.
Right?
Yeah. What you
Right.
got?
I miss right a lot.
Sorry to hear that.
As evidenced.
Okay. I think the first thing that occurs to me is that your weight is very far forward as well.
Okay.
So consider, and what that's doing is it's making your arm be way away from your body as well. And that, it seems like you're having difficulty with like your nose angle as well as your left foot. So what happens if you try to drop your left foot back a little bit further, and you don't necessarily have to shift your hips a lot. It's more like what I would like you to be able to do is get the disc back closer to your belt buckle or your belly button, wherever's comfortable vertically, so that you can kind of let like a little bit of momentum
Stand up as opposed to
instead. Like if you're already out here, it's hard to generate power. It's hard to generate that consistency. But back in here, like you've got a lot more control over the rest of the functions. So try to drop that left foot back further.
as far as I can.
Okay. That second one had a lot of authority.
Yeah, it did.
What felt different about that?
I got all my time into the pushing my pushed off.
Sure. Yeah. So it seems like you want to naturally be a spin putter. So absolutely lean into that. Spin versus push both fine. What I would suggest is if you're out here, it's going to be hard to replicate.
So how do I correct that?
I think it's like getting your elbow to lead your wrist a little bit so that your release point can be closer to your body. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Let's try one more set. So at a minimum, all of those were online or a little bit less.
Yep.
So I think what we might not have solved the problem, but I think so. I think just like bringing your elbow up and out a little bit, I think what that's doing is keeping you online and being like trying to drop that left foot back a little bit. I think that's enabling you to keep the disc closer to your body at your release point, which means that you can get some pop. Yeah, thank you. Sure. All right, thank you for your patience.
I feel like sometimes I'm way off.
Okay.
So sometimes I'm pretty decent. So it's like consistency is a big issue, I'd say.
Okay. Is there a pattern to when you're on and off?
No.
Okay.
Not really. I try and like focus on a single chain freak and everything, and then just I don't know.
Okay.
And I'm also trying to like dial in my legs. I found that like the roach really works for me the best compared to like some others. So.
Okay. Sure. But there's so many options out there. You just have to find one that like nothing's perfect. Some days I hate the roach, but most of the time it's pretty good, and everything flies the same. All right, show me what you got. Okay. I think a lot of the same advice that I give constantly. Your weight is pretty far forward, which means you're not doing a whole lot with your lower body. So I would suggest, like, if we do a baseball swing, right, or we shoot a basketball, and we do that, or we do that, we're not getting a lot out of it. You got to use your legs too.
Alright, so come way back here. And
Yeah, but it's not that you're like squatting into it or that you're rotating on. It's that you want to be moving your hips back and forth. So try moving that left foot back a little further,
back one.
so that you can move into the shot.
Like that.
Yeah, like
All right.
your first one looked awkward. The third one looked comfortable.
Gotcha. Okay. And so I don't know if I'm a spin putter or not. So I feel like I don't know.
It looks like you're just putting your wrist on the outside of the disc. I think you need to curl it a little bit.
Curling it.
Like
Okay.
regardless of whether you're going to spin or push, it's hard to do a whole lot when your wrist is on the outside of the putter. Like,
Gotcha.
that's as much pop as I can really put on.
Okay.
So curl a little bit, and then let that wrist open up as you get to the
Gotcha.
finishing.
I mean, I did walk about it. It's wonderful.
Well, okay, but that's fair. Like, you know, like.
I feel I'm like losing how I should be.
Sure.
So
Don't worry about everything. Focus on one thing you can control. I don't care which thing.
okay.
Yeah.
See, I was like in my head.
So would you be like, yeah, I play with you, huh?
I might have one
So yeah, I lost the rock there. I knew that. So do you think that's something I should focus on more, like the most?
Figuring out how to use your entire body is helpful. Okay, so let's say we build the perfect putt with no legs in it. Okay, and we get all of this working, so that you make everything from here.
Yeah.
You're still gonna have trouble out here because like these are big powerful muscles, these are not, right? Like that's about as much as I can do from here without trying to use my legs. So I would suggest, yeah, if you're putting from here, don't worry about using your legs at all. Like anchor that back foot and just putt. But when you are practicing, even into here, like figure out how you can move back forward with your legs.
Okay. So I feel like I want to take my first
Really weighing the
foot
pros and
off and
cons.
kind of like
Sure.
go like that.
You seem really stiff on your front leg as well. So it's okay to bend that and let like kind of absorb the impact as you're pushing it.
Okay. And should I fully push off of the back one then?
Yeah, naturally you're gonna have to come up,
Okay.
but you have to maintain balance. So you'll have to stop your momentum. At some point. Yeah. You wanna do one more set for me?
Yeah.
I was not pointing fingers here.
Italy and that's fun. She can do somebody from here.
Yeah.
You have to get to yeah.
2 minutes. You gonna give me one more set?
Oh yeah. I've done.
No.
And y'all feel free to jump in if there's any last things we want to talk about.
I feel like I'm like a robot now. I'm like going back and then down and up.
So let's talk about my first point. Like, how do you be loose? Like, being robotic seems very stiff.
Yeah.
Very, like you're not going to be smooth.
Okay.
How can you be loose and still affect the same thing?
It's like what I'm doing up here, like coming down and then up. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Like
Okay.
there's a lot of players, like we've seen it today, starting up here and coming down and pushing forward.
Okay.
Like all of that can work. It's just like you don't want to be pulling here and then back here and then trying to release. Like
Gotcha, yeah.
keep it on.
I
the
feel
same
like I do that when I'm back there 20 more feet and I try and get that distance.
The more you have to throw it rather than cut it, the
Yeah.
more you're gonna do stuff like
Okay,
that.
gotcha.
That's common. Okay.
I feel like I'm gravitating toward
To a spin?
Yeah.
There are no halfways. So if I'm like, we're flat. There's basically no wind right now. There's no consequences if I miss this. Let's say we get to like one of the really steep holes out here, and you know there's nothing beyond the basket. I pretty much decided on those that if I'm gonna make it, I'm gonna run it like there's no consequence. And if it rolls away or if I miss, like whatever, like this is a fun game. What I can't really abide on those is being like, well, maybe I should just like kind of put it up there real softly. And like, yeah, it might work sometimes, but if I'm trying to do two things halfway, neither of them works very well.
Right.
So
So you're either laying up or you're running it, but you're not gonna like.
A layup, run it.
There's like a place where I get to where I'm like, well, I can give this like a lofty run, and then if I miss, it's not gonna miss by a lot.
Right.
But I haven't really given it like a full send.
yeah.
And so you're saying to not do that, to like just pick
Well,
one and or
So when I say there's no half runs, that means that I'm not doing the like, maybe it'll go in.
go in, yeah.
But
I think too,
I
like
suggested developing a base putt, but also like when you're in the woods or when there's more wind, like you've got to be able to spin this,
yeah.
or you've got to be able to putt from like this weird strategy. So in order to have a good miss, it's like how far past this basket could I afford to go if I don't make it? Like rollaways, whatever. We can't control those, but we can control the angle that we land on. So maybe that means that the safe way to run this, if we have this slope that's like this, if I put it down on a hyzer, there's more of a chance of it rolling away. But on this slope, if I match the angle of that, it's not really going to go that far if I land flat to that hillside. Okay? So maybe the safe way to run this is kind of with that angle, so that it lands effectively flatter.
Where like my brain and my body weren't in sync enough for that. So just trying to find that one thing to be like, I did this well. What was right? Or I did this wrong. What was missing?
I think with those things too, it's important to sort of compartmentalize. Like allow a specific time to do that processing. Don't do it right after you threw the shot while you're still playing around. It's something you can think about, the next day. Or, for us, like, we sort of have this off season and a season where we're going tournaments almost every weekend. And if we're trying to focus on those more meta form things, it's not going to be helpful to be thinking about them the day before a tournament. So yeah, just when you do those things can also be important and align with your specific goals.
I feel like all of the advice you give, all three of you are doing it accumulatively. I read in a book that another disc golfer recommended, which is about ball golf, but golf is not a game of perfect, and then the follow-up, golf is a game of confidence. And it's just, it changed a lot in my game. I improved, but like my mental game, I improved because of my mental game, but after reading those books. And golf is not a game of perfect. The second one is golf is a game of confidence.
There's another one, your 15th club. Same thing, so you're only allowed to have 14 clubs. 15th is the mental game.
6-inch fairway.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you guys.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
For sure. How are you?